One rode out of the open steppe and conquered the largest land empire in human history. The other marched out of revolutionary France and nearly conquered Europe twice. One left mountains of skulls outside burning cities. The other left a legal code still in use in dozens of countries today. Both are remembered as military geniuses. Both rewrote the meaning of conquest. Both became names that translate into every language on earth. Tonight, Genghis Khan and Napoleon Bonaparte. The two greatest conquerors in human history. Two completely different empires. One question. Who was truly more dangerous? Welcome back to Evil versus Evil, Monsters of History. This is episode 12. Born in the Khenti Mountains of Mongolia in the year 1162, the boy who would become Genghis Khan was given the name Temujin, meaning iron or blacksmith. He was born, according to Mongol legend, with a clot of blood clutched in his fist, a sign that he would shed the blood of nations. His father, Yesuge, was a minor chieftain who was poisoned at a feast by Tatar enemies when Temujin was 9 years old. His clan abandoned the family on the steppe to die. His mother, Holan, kept her children alive by digging for roots and trapping rodents. Temujin, even as a child, was already different. At 13, he murdered his older half-brother Begder over a hunting dispute. At 15, he was captured and enslaved by a rival clan. He escaped, killed his guards, and disappeared back into the grasslands. For the next 20 years, he climbed. He formed blood brother alliances. He betrayed them when necessary. He gathered followers. He won battles. He earned a reputation as a ruler who would slaughter every man in a conquered tribe, but adopt the women and children as Mongols. By the year 1206, he had unified every nomadic clan on the Mongolian plateau into a single nation under a single banner. At a great council on the banks of the Onon River, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, universal ruler. He was already 44 years old. He had not yet conquered a single foreign empire. The next 2 decades of his life would be among the most violent in human history. He turned south first, into the kingdom of Western Xia in northwestern China. He turned east, into the Jin dynasty that ruled northern China. He turned west, into the powerful Khwarezmian Empire that stretched from modern Iran to Afghanistan. In each campaign, the pattern was the same. He offered cities a choice: surrender and pay tribute, or be erased. Most cities refused. Most cities ceased to exist. The Persian city of Nishapur, which had insulted a Mongol envoy, was reduced to a flat plain. Mongol soldiers, according to surviving Persian chronicles, built pyramids of 170,000 human skulls outside the city walls. Samarkand, Bukhara, Herat, Merv, all reduced to ash. Estimates of the total dead during Genghis Khan's lifetime range from 20 million to 40 million people, in an era when the entire population of Earth was perhaps 300 million. By the time he died, in August 1227, on campaign against the Western Xia Kingdom, Genghis Khan's empire stretched from the Pacific coast of Korea to the borders of Eastern Europe. It was the largest contiguous land empire in the history of the world. He left behind, however, more than just conquest. He built the first transcontinental postal system, the YAM, with relay stations every 20 miles across his empire. He guaranteed religious tolerance across his domains, which included Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and shamanists. He commissioned a written script for the Mongol language. He created a legal code, the Yasa, that survived in fragments for centuries. He was buried in an unmarked grave, the location kept secret by his soldiers, who allegedly killed every worker and every witness on the way home. His grave has never been found. That was Genghis Khan, the boy from the steppe who taught the world a new definition of war. Born in Ajaccio, Corsica, in 1769, just 1 year after the island had been transferred from Genoese to French control, Napoleon Bonaparte was the second of 8 children in a minor, Italian-speaking noble family. He grew up resentful, intense, and short-tempered. He was bullied at his French military academy for his Corsican accent. He read voraciously, He studied mathematics and artillery. He believed, from a young age, that he was destined for greatness, and the French Revolution arrived just in time to give him room. He was a junior artillery officer when the revolution broke out in 1789. He was a brigadier general at 24, after leading the recapture of Toulon from royalists and the British. He was the commander of the entire French army of Italy at 26. By the end of his first Italian campaign in 1797, he had defeated 4 separate Austrian armies, redrawn the map of northern Italy, and become a household name in every capital in Europe. He invaded Egypt in 1798, partly to threaten British India, partly to put himself in the role of a new Alexander. The campaign failed militarily, but the legend grew. He returned to France in 1799 and overthrew the Directory in a bloodless coup. He made himself first consul. 5 years later, in Notre Dame Cathedral, he took the imperial crown from the Pope's hands and placed it on his own head. He was Emperor Napoleon I. For the next decade, Napoleon waged what would be called the Napoleonic Wars. He won at Austerlitz, Jena, Friedland, and Wagram. He occupied Vienna, Berlin, Madrid, Warsaw, and Moscow. At his peak in 1812, he ruled directly or controlled, through puppet kingdoms, an empire that stretched from Portugal to Poland. His continental system was an attempt to economically strangle Britain by closing every European port to British goods. The system was a slow disaster that turned much of Europe against him. In June 1812, against every piece of advice he was offered, Napoleon invaded Russia with the largest army in European history to that point. 600,000 men crossed the Niemen River. Fewer than 100,000 returned. The retreat from Moscow, in temperatures of 40 below zero, with horses dying in the harnesses and men freezing solid on the road, became the most catastrophic military disaster of the 19th century. He was defeated at the Battle of Leipzig in 1813. He abdicated in 1814 and was exiled to the small Mediterranean island of Elba, where he was granted personal sovereignty over a population of 12,000 farmers and fishermen. Within 10 months, he escaped, landed in France with 700 men, and walked toward Paris. Royalist troops sent to arrest him simply joined his march instead. By the time he reached the capital, he had a national army again. He ruled for 100 days before being decisively defeated by the Duke of Wellington and the Prussians at the Battle of Waterloo on June 18th. 1815. The British exiled him to St. Helena, a remote rock in the South Atlantic, where he died on May 5th, 1821, possibly of stomach cancer, possibly of arsenic poisoning. He was 51 years old. The Napoleonic Wars he had waged are estimated to have killed between 3 and 6 million people. The Napoleonic Code he created remains the basis of civil law in dozens of countries today. That was Napoleon Bonaparte, the Corsican who almost conquered Europe and gave it a legal system on the way down. Now let us put these two conquerors side by side. Category 1. Size of empire. Genghis Khan. Empire covered roughly 12 million square miles at its peak, the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Napoleon's empire and its puppet kingdoms covered roughly 700,000 square miles. The edge is Genghis, by an order of magnitude. Category 2. Body count. Genghis Khan's conquests killed between 20 and 40 million people. Napoleon's wars killed between 3 and 6 million. The edge is Genghis. Category 3. Military innovation. Genghis Khan revolutionized warfare by combining cavalry, mobility, siege engineering, intelligence networks, and ruthless psychological tactics. Napoleon revolutionized warfare by combining mass conscription, rapid maneuver, combined arms, and corps-level organization. Both rewrote how armies fight. The edge in raw innovation is Napoleon, who fought against modern military states with comparable technology. Genghis often fought against opponents he simply outnumbered or outpaced. Category 4. Lasting institutional legacy. Genghis Khan's empire collapsed within a century of his death. Napoleon's empire collapsed in his own lifetime, but the Napoleonic Code, the metric system spread, the rationalization of European borders, the creation of secular government structures, all remain in force across most of the world today. The edge, decisively, is Napoleon. Category 5. Cultural staying power. Both names are universally known. Genghis Khan is a symbol of conquering ruthlessness. Napoleon is a symbol of imperial ambition and tactical genius. Genghis Khan, however, has fathered an estimated 0.5% of all living men through genetic descent. He may be the most reproductively successful human being who has ever lived. Napoleon left behind a son who died at 21. The edge, oddly enough, is Genghis. His genome is still spreading, so the category split 3-2 in favor of Genghis. But categories do not capture everything. Here is the wild card. What if they had ever faced each other? Imagine Napoleon at the Battle of Borodino in 1812. But the opposing army is not Russian. It is Mongol. Genghis Khan would not have fought him on those terms. He would have refused to engage. He would have burned every village 100 miles ahead of Napoleon's army. He would have poisoned every well. He would have waited for the French to starve, freeze, and panic. Then, he would have annihilated them in pieces during the retreat. Napoleon's brilliance required a battlefield opponent. Genghis Khan would have given him an empty horizon. The verdict. By the categories, Genghis Khan wins. He conquered more, killed more, and left a wider genetic footprint than any conqueror in history. He was the original total warrior. But here is the part that should disturb you. Genghis Khan's empire is gone. His cities are gone. His name lives, but nothing he built remains. Napoleon's empire collapsed, but his code, his institutions, his administrative model are still shaping legal systems on 6 continents 2 centuries later. Genghis Khan won the war. Napoleon won the future. Genghis was the conqueror. Napoleon was the codifier. The winner is Genghis. The one whose work you still live inside is Napoleon. Next episode, Eileen Wuornos versus Richard Ramirez. 2 killers defined by rage, chaos, and cultural mythology. One hunted men on the highways of Florida. The other terrorized Los Angeles in the middle of the night.